I'm Mike.
And I'm Brad.
And this is NFGeeks. All right. Well, Brad, the two mysticism debates have generated so much chatter and interest that we're now going to have our third mysticism discussion. Not really debates, they're more discussions. So we're going to have our third discussion on this. And so I wanted to respond to the stuff that we talked about last time a little bit, because I've been thinking about it since our last interaction here. And so I've been trying to do, to show that I'm listening, is I've been trying to come up with a synthesis of everything that we've been talking about, kind of like a Hegelian thing going on, where there's this thesis and antithesis and how the two can come together for this new thing. I've been trying that in my mind. Granted, I still sort of privilege NF, of course. But I've been trying to think of, like, how can all of this come together, and how can the other types have mysticism? So, I'm trying to do it. How can they all have mysticism? So this is what I thought, and then you can respond. All right, so let's get Jungian for a minute. Okay, let's assume that some of the Jungian things are correct, or at least viable, and that we're all connected to a collective unconscious, or a collective consciousness, if you want to even look at it that way. Now, the Myers-Briggs connection is that this collective consciousness is the totality of the 4 temperaments and the 16 types. So this human consciousness is actually all of these types at once. The grand, or Hegelian spirit, if you will, as they call it. But it's actually the totality of all the temperaments and all the 16 types at once, right? Now, if we as individuals are connected to that consciousness, either culturally or in the field of civilization, whatever, then all the 16 types are inside of us, or we have a connection to all 16 types, and all 16 personality traits, and all the functions. So they're not necessarily our strengths, but somewhere inside is all of this, because we're tapping into it. The one that comes out the strongest is our specific temperament or type, but somewhere they're all in there. And the way to think about it, and sometimes NFGeeks we talk about it this way, and maybe this is a mistake, but that, the 4 source traits and all the 5-factor personality people just lost their minds, because I use the word source traits with the Myers-Briggs, but I don't care. Yeah, the hell with you guys. All right, but the Myers-Briggs source traits are not dichotomies. They're actually, the 4 things are actually one dimension that we all share. So everybody has the opposite dimension in them. Okay.
Each thing contains its own opposite.
Sure, that's right. It's very Taoist, and that's why it's a Jungian. But so, for example, it's not like it's not that there's this complete wall between each side. So it's not extroverted or introverted. Extroverted, introverted is one dimension, and you are somewhere on that dimension, which implies, though, that you have the other dimension too. So every E has an I side. So, for example, my feeling is introverted. That's my introverted side. So we all have introversion in us. We all have, even the NFs have a thinking side. Okay, NTs have a feeling side. NTs get sad.
Androids cry.
Androids cry. That's right. Yeah, and dream of electric sheep and all that stuff, right? But still,
I was hoping that reference would come up.
Would you eventually? Yeah, I was holding back on it with you. I was kind of like, okay, I don't want to rub it in his face, but. All right, but right. I mean, you have a T. Your T is your strength, but it's one dimension. So that means you have a feeling side. You have a sensing side. All the sensors have an intuitive side. Everybody has this, which means if we have all the other sides, then we also have within us NF, SJ, SP. There's a part of us that is like all those temperaments, and then therefore we can even break it down on some level. There's a little ISTJ in us, and a little ESTP in us, and a little INFJ in us, because all the combinations exist on some level. They're just not our strengths. Okay, so
I like how you're doing that from the stomach chakra.
Yeah, that's right. See, that's right. It is. See, you know your mysticism well. So so therefore, this is where I'm trying to reach you, and try to connect and try to show understanding. Everybody has some NF in them, even the INTJ. Okay, I know they're very upset about that. But they all have some NF in them, because they all have the feeling side of that dimension somewhere. So everybody's an NF, and everybody's an SJ, and everything, it's all that. But so if everybody has the NF in them, then everybody has some little antenna towards mysticism in them. because everybody has an intuitive side. Now, granted, it may be the weaker side. Obviously, like if you take an ST, it's much weaker because their strength is, sensing and thinking. But somewhere in them is an N and an F, and therefore that means they have an NF, in there. It may not be strong, but it's a little bit in there. So everybody has some kind of NF. And so I have a story to tell that I've realized from talking to you, I forgot about.
Mm-hmm.
And that is my mother and my aunt, when I was a child, and they're both SJs, so think about that, really did this really scary thing with the Ouija board that they could do. And they weren't faking it because they're SJs, they don't have any imagination, okay? They weren't faking it. But they would do this thing, and they would, in between them, I don't know if it's because they were sisters, it would go so fast, the Ouija thing would move so fast that both my sister and I would have to have pads and write it down because one person couldn't catch all the letters. They were coming up so fast, okay? So my sister would be there with a pad, and I would be there with a pad, and we're trying to get it all down. That's how fast that thing would be moving. Now, I just thought, as a child, this was normal. For the board, that's how fast it goes, until I saw other people do it in my teenage years, and that's when I got frightened about it, because I just thought, no, isn't this supposed to be moving a lot faster? And I realized that was just special to them. And they definitely weren't faking it. I mean, something, this is for all the other NTs. Granted, something unconscious might have been happening with them because they were sisters and they were close, and it may not be the metaphysical, supernatural thing going on. Fine, okay. But they were, they really did do it. It really happened. And, because my sister and I talk about this all the time. So it really happened, and they were absolutely SJs. In fact, my aunt was an ISTJ. I mean, my God, but still it came out. So that made me think back to you. I know I've been rambling here. But that made me think back to you that you have a point, that perhaps inside everybody there's some NF, and therefore everybody has a little antenna going on, a little bit, not strong as the NFs, but there. Okay, so now, what do you have to say about that? How do you feel about that? Or what are your thoughts?
Well, first I want to do a touchdown dance. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
That's great. A robot. Do the robot. Yeah. Do you like that?
I enjoyed that.
Yeah, see? I'd listen to you.
I really don't know what to say other than that. I agreed. That's actually kind of what I was getting at with, we were talking one day, and I was saying maybe there's a way to change yourself into, if you really wanted to be, you could be like, I could be an ESFJ, even though I'm an INTP. Like, there might be a way to, because it's in there somewhere. It might take more energy to get out, but once you spend enough time in that place, like meditation takes a while to get a hold of, but when you get there, it becomes easier to stay there.
Well, I think, right, my thoughts on it is that it's possible to get in touch with it. Mm-hmm. It's possible to get in touch with your SP side, your NF side, your NT side. I don't think, and this is the world according to Mike, okay, but I don't think you can sustain it. I don't think you could, or have it come up to the level of your primary type. I don't think you could get so in touch with your ESFJ side that you literally become an ESFJ side perpetually.
I wouldn't want that to happen.
No, but I don't think you could. I think you could get in touch with it and get close. And maybe that's why there's a connection when you get to types that are more similar to you, because you could come into contact with that a little more closely and maybe sustain it for a certain amount of time, longer than the other types. So for example, you might be able to, the NTs, you might be able to get in touch with the other NT sides stronger than any others. Or I may be able to get in touch with my INFJ side a lot easier than the others types. Or my INFP side, I could really get in touch with that one. I know that one well. But I can never sustain an INFP personality. I'll never switch over.
Or you can pick out your own types even when they
yes.
insist they're another type.
Yes, that's right. That's right. That's very good. Brad just did that recently with a stroke of genius about somebody that we know. He nailed her, just, because she was saying she was an ENTJ, and we're like, that's crazy. No, not an ENTJ, but what the heck are you? I couldn't, I wouldn't get there. But Brad nailed it because he saw himself in her. So he was absolutely right.
That was another little touchdown dance I just had.
Yeah, that's right. Another robot. That's right. So,
Mm.
okay, so that's my first topic.
Mm-hmm.
So, what are some of your responses from our last mysticism debate that you've thought about?
I'd have to, if we had watched it a little bit more, I would have to be able to remember it now.
Okay.
Uh,
Well, what other thoughts you have just in general then?
Mysticism. You can just go and see if we can catch anything.
Okay.
I don't really have anything written down this time.
I did take notes. Okay. So the second thing then, Brad, is this is a little more contrary.
Mhm.
Okay. But you talked about empathy in the last video.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah. The
And
INTP being the logical empath.
yes. Okay. Now this has come
I'm trying
up.
to get that trademarked.
Sure. Okay. Well,
People work that in.
all right. You're going to have some trouble
Mhm.
with that because on NFGeeks in the emails and comments, a lot of NTs have talked about rational empathy. They call it rational empathy. So you might be talking about the same
Yeah.
thing or a parallel thing.
I think we might be meaning the same thing.
Yes, yes. Okay, now, granted, I'll concede in light of the last statements I made that there's a little NF in everybody.
Mhm.
So everyone's capable of some level of empathy. Okay, but I'm a little critical of it for two reasons. One is I don't think you're having empathy as much as you're having comprehension. So it's not that you're feeling what the other person's feeling, but you're running it through your processor, and you're able to understand the process that's going on with them or their own internal thought process, but it's more of a comprehension of analysis of process. That's the one
Alright.
thing I think.
I'll get that.
Okay. Secondly, and I've tried to explain this to other NTs, and this is why. One of the reasons why, as an NF, I don't think you're having empathy the way we do, is because you're kind of happy about it. Like, we have empathy too, and if you were like that's not the NF experience of empathy. The NF experience a lot of times with empathy,
sucks.
yes, where's the off button? Where is the off button? Because this is making me crazy, okay? NF empathy, first of all, it stops you in your tracks. Whatever path you were on, you'll encounter something that allows you to have empathy, and it's usually something horrible and painful and sad and whatever. But you encounter something where the empathy thing clicks in, and you come to a complete halt. You now can't do anything, okay? You have to stop. The second thing is that with the empathy thing, with NFs I find, is that it genuinely hurts. Like, I've seen NFs run out of movie theaters because of empathy. I've seen NFs throw up over, like literally throw up over empathy. And people like totally dogging them and thinking they're ridiculous. My own version of this is Noah, my son. He's really into the skateboard crashing videos. Some kids skateboarding down steps and then they land on their balls and they break their arm and all these things in front of their friends.
Mhm.
And he thinks this is hysterical that they're jackasses for doing this.
Mhm.
And I
You
can't
find
take
it
them.
painful.
I do find it painful. I
I-
only can watch
I
them for a little
actually-
bit, and then I'm like, okay, we're shutting this off.
I have a story about that.
Okay.
All right. One time, I do have empathy. This is why I might
Okay.
consider
Sure.
myself being an INFP who just is posing as an INTP.
And that's very common for INFPs, to be honest. I think more
Um,
you do lean towards INTP, but boy, INFPs do that. So.
And so, what happened was one time my friend who's the ESFJ, he was telling this story. He thinks he also has like this. I think SJs have a thing with Schadenfreude.
Oh yes. Yes, they do. Yes,
he
because
was-
Noah's like that.
He
Yes.
was telling me about this story, this real world thing that happened to this woman who just got attacked and like beaten, and like everything he was describing was painful to me. And at one point, she got like acid splashed on her face, and like I felt the acid, like I felt like somebody splashed, like just pain. And then like apparently she got shot in the head, and like, yeah, and I felt that, and by the end of it, I felt like I was going to throw up, and the room was spinning, and I needed to go lay down, and it was bad. And he's done that a couple times, and like by that one, that was probably the second time, and I was like, I can't hear those things. They're painful to me. Can't handle it.
Well, if you're not an INFP, it must mean that you have a stronger F side than you may realize. Do you remember what how much percent of your T was?
My T was like 12 or 13.
Ah, pretty low.
Hmm.
That explains a lot. See, your NF side is actually probably stronger than other NTs.
I think the highest out of all of them was probably my P. My P was a 15.
Wow.
So I was kind of low on everything.
All right, Brad. That's enough. We don't have any more time, so thanks a lot. Maybe we'll do a part 2 because we got to talk more about this.